Have you ever watched so much anime in 1 week that it made you sick? Because I have. Hello, and welcome back to Binging Last Season, where I am physically ill. Let's talk about anime. This is the last video for winter 2025, and there were 8 shows that I wanted to talk about. I only got through 5, and as you can tell from the title, there's only one I really want to go into detail about, so let's speed through the other ones. First up is Flower and Asura. It's another character drama disguised as a hobby nobody knew about before watching the show, another introvert main character who can barely function as a human, and more drama between characters trying to figure themselves out by taking it out on everybody else. It's so stupid and pointless. It's great. No surprises here. I love these character dramas with super specific focuses, even if this is more for women, and it definitely is. Mal has it listed as a seinen, but it's not. It's definitely more josei oriented, but that doesn't mean dudes can't enjoy it. This one focuses on poetry and takes place in a fantasy world where reading a poem activates your domain expansion, and you can pull somebody into your mind palace and show them all sorts of pretty visuals to go along with your poem. Most of the domain expansions are pretty cool, and I only remember one that didn't really hit, and the final one in episode 12 was about as dope as the ones from JJK. And yeah, you're gonna cry a lot, but that's what you get for watching an anime that is basically about sound and voice work. The audio was great in this anime, and every time it popped off, it hit me like a semi-truck. And speaking of audio, I thought the ending song was especially pleasant, and I thought it matched the raw subject matter of the anime really well. Overall, I gave this a 9 out of 10, considering that it is my jam and this is the type of thing that I'm into. If I have any complaints, it's that the show is insanely not done. Not to the point that it's offensive, but to the point that I am very much expecting a follow-up movie or a season 2, because the story really hasn't concluded. Season 1 concluded in a way it's okay. It's not dropping any points. It's pretty solidly a 9. It's also not gaining any points though. It's pretty good. Check it out. Next up is a terrified teacher at Ghoul School, and for once I actually like the English localization of an anime name, so I feel the need to point it out. I'm always complaining about how the translation doesn't really match up to the original title or doesn't really make sense, and the original title is Yokai Gakko no Sensei Hajimemashita, so it's not exactly the same, but their use of alliteration and rhyming really matches the goofy sort of vibe of this show, so the English title actually feels appropriate for the anime. It doesn't feel like a pointless change for no reason. This one is kind of tough to get into because it's 24 episodes, and the first episodes give us a very unlikable main character in Abe who is only becoming a teacher because he has a uniform fetish and he wants to see high school girls in sailor uniforms. But it's balanced out by the subject matter of yokai, which is my jam, and also being extremely funny. This is one of the funnier anime that I've watched recently. So by episode 12, I thought that I was just going to slap a 7 on this thing and say, it's good, it's not especially remarkable, and there's nothing really special about this. But the back half of the season definitely changed my mind about that. They went from just being a gag comedy to handling more serious topics and storylines and going into some really dark subject matter that was kind of surprising, but the tonal shift didn't feel like it threw me out of my seat, which I cannot say for all anime. That's a little bit of foreshadowing. I thought the way that they managed that shift in perspective in the show was really well handled, and it made the second half of the season an absolute treat. I ended up giving it an 8 out of 10, and I would love to see a second season of this anime. I feel like they've got more stories to tell. I feel like they've got more in their back pocket, and they definitely alluded to some stuff that we could look into in season 2, and I think it would be fun. I don't think that the premise alone kills this anime, despite it being very weird that he is specifically a teacher so he can see girls in sailor uniforms. It's fucking weird, Abe. Now, earlier you might have noticed that I said this was my last video for winter 2025, and you might be thinking, wait a minute, Celery, you did a winter isekai rundown part 1. When's part 2 coming? It's coming right now. Promise of Wizard is an isekai based on a phone game, and you might think that, oh, that's gonna make it a pretty bad anime, but it turns out you're right. Now, I haven't played this game, but I would bet $100 that the video game intro was not even remotely changed for the anime, because as I was watching it, I was just like, this is just a video game intro. But I don't actually dislike that concept. I think if you're adapting a game to an anime, it could be cool to just straight up use a video gamey intro where he's essentially addressing you, the player, except now it's you, the watcher, and the player is this, female character who has about as much emotion as Kristen Stewart in Twilight, but that's beyond the point. One of the first people that we meet in the anime is named Cock. I don't actually have a joke for that. I feel like I can't say anything funnier than the fact that that is true. This is more shoujo harem than isekai, and all of the characters are extremely one note. Like the red-haired one is knightly, the purple-haired one is more aloof, the white-haired one is a princely character, and the child is racist. But what's worse than every guy only really showing their dateable trait for the main character's harem is the fact that these guys just lost half their squad before she showed up, and they don't seem to care about it at all. They're just making eyes with her in the courtyard going, oh yeah, I'll teach you about magic circles. Half their squad just died. They all at least lost 2 people that should have been relatively important to them, or at least important to someone in the group, and they just never mention it. Doesn't matter. Promise of Wizard doesn't have much going for it, but I did finish it, so I gave it a 5 out of 10. It's not offensively bad. There's not anything that's really frustrating to watch as you're going through the episodes, but there's really nothing standing out in the good category either. It's like definitionally mid. Last up before Zenshu is Headhunted to Another World, from Salaryman to Big 4, and I admittedly haven't finished this as of recording, but if I finish it before I edit, then editing Salary will make any necessary corrections on screen. This is one of the isekai that I was most excited for going into this season, and that admittedly I was most let down by. Granted, that's probably due to my expectations. Uchimura is an unappreciated salaryman who works his ass off in the human world and gets treated like dog water, and so the demon lord isekais him to his world and says there is a place that you will be appreciated and needed, and it's in the demon lord's army. And it turns out he's a nicer and more sympathetic boss than the actual humans who were employing Uchimura back home, so he just goes all in. The premise works, the character designs are great. The main issue this show has is just quality control. There's just a lot of things that I thought were pretty lacking. The animation is pretty lacking, and weirdly enough, the audio mixing is really lacking. That's my main complaint, is that the intro and outro are not matched up to the rest of the audio for the show, and the background music at times is just too loud, to the point that you can't hear the characters speaking, and that feels like a really just amateur mistake to make. This is a really weird case, because without those issues, I probably would have given this show like a 7 out of 10, even with the animation being mid. As long as the story's nice and it's fun, I can enjoy an anime, but the quality issues that are going on here, especially the audio issues, are really noticeable, and they stand out, and they left a really bad taste in my mouth. So I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10. It's fun, it's a good isekai, it's pretty solid, but really dumb and unnecessary mistakes. Alright, let's talk about Zenshu. And look, I'm not happy to be talking about this in a negative perspective, and in order to tell you why, I'm going to tell you everything good about this anime, because there is surprisingly a lot. Our main character, Natsuko, is a famous anime director who is told to make this movie about first love that she knows absolutely nothing about, but before she can do that, she dies and gets transported to her favorite movie from her childhood called A Tale of Perishing, where she has the ability to make changes to the story by drawing animations and sort of having them come to life as a superpower. So she becomes one of the main characters of that story, making different changes as she goes. With Natsuko's power essentially being animation, the fight scenes where she uses her ability are very pretty. And the best one is in episode 1, in my opinion, hands down. But there are a couple more that are really great throughout the story. It's just, I don't think it's on its own enough to carry the anime, but there are some scenes that, I will acknowledge, they're fucking beautiful. Although she does have a transformation sequence that I am not in love with, the first time I saw it, I thought it was awesome. And then the 7th time I saw it, I was pretty fucking tired of it, and they really never changed it apart from one scene. So it's just the same transformation sequence every time. And sure, if you like Sailor Moon, I'm sure you'll get a kick out of it. But, I didn't love it. The characters are a very unique and goofy group of heroes that really match the sort of sillier tone of the beginning of the anime, not so much toward the end, but again, I'll get into that later. And the beginning of the anime sets up a few themes that are really interesting, and I think would be great if they were explored in depth. They could make for a great story. And now we have to get into the sad part of the video. This is where I'm going to put the spoiler tag because there are a few other good things that are sort of soured by other things in the anime that I can't talk about without spoiling it. So if you don't want to be spoiled, skip to this part, whatever I say on the screen, and okay, let's do it. The main issue that I have with Zenshu is with its story, with its tone, and with its themes. And the really sad thing about that is that there is a lot of great potential there for all three of those things that is just soured by the fact that this show cannot make its mind up about what it wants to be. The first half is a power fantasy where Natsuko gets to live in this world that she has adored since she was a child and find out things behind the scenes that nobody necessarily knew about, make changes to save certain characters, and essentially become the protagonist in the story. And it sets up this idea of eventually she is going to be humbled and she is going to realize she can't just do everything by herself. Hold on to that. It's going to be important later. And she needs to rely on the people around her, which is a relevant lesson for her to learn in the real world, where she feels like she is just the only person who can make the anime that she wants to make, and she doesn't need the help of anybody else. And the second half starts to lean more heavily into the idea of first love, and that her first love was actually the lead character from this movie. And that, this might help her figure out how to write the anime when she gets back to the real world, which the show has been teasing at the entire time. And then we get into the despair arc, where it turns out nothing she's been doing really matters at all. And to be honest, you could start this show at episode 7, and I think it would arguably make more sense. Because episodes 1 to 6 don't matter. Just in retrospect, it's just like everything that you've done here, every change that you've made is meaningless because the end is coming all of the same and this is not your movie. And I can respect that. If you want to go into this darker story arc, then okay, you want to tell her that she can't just be making these changes, she alone is not enough to save this world. If you want to go into this nihilistic point of view, I don't necessarily like it, but it takes balls to really go into this negative ending that the movie initially had. The reason why everyone has been so critical of this movie that she loves is because it is so nihilistic. And if you want to go in that direction, fine. But instead of actually telling a story with a decent moral and really leaning into that nihilistic ending of saying there was nothing that she could do to change this from the outset, the final episode is just the biggest slap in the face I've maybe ever gotten from an anime. It's unbelievable. You remember when I was saying that the beginning of the season was sort of leaning toward this idea that she can't just do everything herself, that she can't just fix everything? The final sequence is her just fixing everything by herself. The theme from the first half of the season just disappeared, even though the ending is going to say, well, she did actually learn her lesson and she gained this moral. I don't know why she gained it. She did just fix everything in the end by herself. She didn't really need any help per se, and the world was destroyed in this sort of nihilistic, everything sort of ends. Then they're just like, whoops, we take it all back. What are we doing? And the show sort of does a commentary on itself during that sequence, saying this pointless happy ending isn't the only good way to end an anime. But I didn't respect that from Endgame, and I don't respect it from Zenshu. You can't just point out that the thing you are doing is stupid while you do that thing. Every plot point and theme is cheapened by Zenshu's inability to choose what it wants to be tonally. It just can't decide if it wants to be nihilistic, what lesson it wants to teach Natsuko. It can't choose, so it sort of chooses all of them and subsequently fumbles the bag as hard as it possibly could. I don't like it when an anime ends up being a complete and total waste of time. I don't like it when the prior episodes are sort of ignored for an ending that doesn't really make sense. I don't like it when themes aren't fully, explored in a way that is satisfying, and I don't don't like this massive tonal shift that's constantly happening in Zenshu. And I could tell from the very beginning, I had a feeling, like a premonition, that this anime was going to waste my time, and by episode 12, it felt like it did. I feel like Zenshu could have been anything from an 8 if I ignored the plot and story issues to a 6 because of the plot and story issues, so I gave it a 7 just to be a little fair. But this is not an anime that I would want to come back to. I just felt like there were way too many issues that, really bothered me by the end of the viewing experience, and overall, I just didn't enjoy it. That being said, if you think I'm missing something, if you think that like my explanation, doesn't actually cover the points of the anime that you think were amazing, write a comment. Let me know. I am incredibly curious about the perspectives of people who did enjoy this more than I did. Is it just they don't take issue with the plot and story parts, or do you think that you noticed something that I didn't notice? Because for the life of me, I feel like I want to enjoy this anime because of all of the positives, how beautiful it is, how striking it is visually, but I cannot get over these story issues. I just can't, man. And that's it for the winter 2025 run of Binging Last Season. I'm going to go hibernate because I'm still very sick, and ideally I'd like to be able to make a better video next week. See you guys next season.